Hello, this is Dr. Bruno Hardman, and welcome to my medical channel. Here, we talk about health, prevention, and the latest treatment methods.
You have been misled your entire life. They told you that masturbation was unclean, and something you should have left behind by the time you reached 50. But here is what nobody revealed after turning 60. Masturbation is not just normal. It might actually be the key between thriving and decline. I have dedicated more than 30 years to caring for men just like you. My name is Dr. Bruno Hardman, and I am a urologist as well as a professor specializing in men's health at Baylor College of Medicine. I have witnessed the hidden outcomes of neglect, shame, and false information. I have seen many healthy men struggle not due to illness, but because of what they never understood. The reality is that most older men masturbate incorrectly, or, even worse, stop entirely. They do not realize that the way you touch yourself, how frequently you do it, and the intention behind it can influence your hormones, heart, and brain. Yes, one simple act performed improperly can contribute to erection difficulties, sadness, and even prostate issues. When done correctly, it can elevate testosterone levels, enhance sleep quality, and keep your circulatory system functioning well. This topic is not simply about pleasure. It is about maintaining function, restoring connection, and resisting the effects of aging that begin in the nervous system. In just a moment, I will reveal 7 essential truths about masturbation that every man over 60 should have learned long ago. But first, ask yourself this. If one part of your daily habits held the secret to better health, improved mood, and stronger vitality, would you not want to know it? If you want to discover what it truly is, stay with me, because what you are about to hear could completely transform how you live the next 10 years of your life. Before we move forward, if you have not yet subscribed, take a moment to do so, and activate the notification bell. This way you will never miss honest, science-based health advice tailored specifically for men in your life stage. If this message strikes a chord with you, simply type 1 in the comments. If it does not, type 0. Your input helps me create content that genuinely supports you. Now let us dive in by exploring the first fact many men only hear after facing issues. The way you have been pleasuring yourself for years, perhaps even decades, might feel familiar and harmless. However, after the age of 60, what once appeared routine could silently begin working against your well-being. This is the starting point where we uncover the most overlooked error older men commit regarding self-pleasure. It is subtle, quiet, yet over time, it can cost you more than you realize. The first secret reveals that unconscious masturbation can cause numbness and erectile difficulties. Let me share something I wish more men were brave enough to discuss openly. Throughout my career, countless older patients have come into my office with quiet shame, eyes lowered, voices barely audible. After some time, when the conversation became candid, I would ask, "Do you masturbate?" Almost always, there was a pause followed by a confession. "Yes, but I do not feel much anymore," or "I cannot finish unless I do." It is a particular way. What stays with me the most is the feeling that their body somehow forgot how to respond. What they were unaware of was that the rapid, mechanical, disconnected method they used had shaped their body into dysfunction without them realizing it. The effects crept in silently and severely. Mindless masturbation is more than just a poor habit, it is a neurological conditioning cycle. Every time you hurry through the process with tension in your shoulders, while scrolling through intense images using the same hand and repetitive motions leading to the same result, you train your brain to link arousal with that exact routine. The brain adapts quickly, so over time, your sensitivity decreases. The quality of your erection diminishes, and you may find yourself requiring greater stimulation, stronger pressure, or new techniques just to achieve the same sensation you once had. It becomes increasingly difficult to respond naturally to a real partner, causing you to avoid intimacy because it feels too different, too slow, too genuine. This is where the true harm begins, not only physically, but emotionally. I have witnessed individuals fall into cycles of frustration, shame, or even depression, believing their bodies are damaged. However, in many situations, the body is not broken, but rather conditioned excessively in the wrong way. This behavioral pattern can result in what is known as porn-induced erectile dysfunction, or PIED. And it can also cause conditions such as delayed ejaculation, or in some cases, complete anorgasmia, which is the inability to achieve orgasm. Climax problems are not uncommon conditions. They quietly impact millions of men. The harsh truth is that many of them remain unaware that they have unknowingly caused these issues themselves. But the most serious part, and I want you to understand this clearly, is that when you train your body in this manner without changing direction, the consequences go beyond just sexual difficulties. You lose confidence, you lose connection, and you begin to withdraw. Your relationship with your own body grows distant. You avoid touch and intimacy. For many men, this feeling of isolation opens the door to much darker experiences, such as emotional numbness, depression, and even early signs of mental decline. I have witnessed this repeatedly. The toll is not just confined to the bedroom. It affects your spirit too. It changes how you carry yourself when entering a room and how you perceive yourself in the mirror. Slowly, you begin to fade away. I am not here to criticize you. I am here to alert you. The positive news is that your body can relearn and your nervous system can recover. However, this requires awareness, patience, and a new approach to self-pleasure. This new method must be slower, more mindful, and more connected not only to physical sensation, but also to emotion. Masturbation itself is not the enemy. The problem arises when it is done without awareness. It is like putting your car in gear and stepping on the accelerator without steering. Sooner or later, you will experience a crash. By the time you realize the harm, recovery may take much longer than you expect. But here's something many men need to understand. Many people do not understand that while thoughtless masturbation can cause harm, there is something equally dangerous hiding right before our eyes. Something even quieter and more widespread. Yet society actually praises it. In the upcoming Secret, I will explain why avoiding masturbation entirely after 60 could be the very factor gradually undermining your health from within. If you are still with me and these ideas resonate, just type the number 1 in the comments to show you are following along. Now, let's continue, because there is something crucial you need to learn next. Masturbation helps reduce congestion and inflammation in the prostate. I recall a gentleman from a few years ago. Let's call him David. He was 68 years old, proud, reserved, and the type of man who did not enjoy discussing private issues. But he came to see me because he was waking up 5, sometimes 6 times during the night to urinate. He complained of pressure, fullness, and even a dull ache deep within his pelvic area. David believed it was just the effects of aging catching up to him. What surprised him was when I asked, "When was the last time you ejaculated?" He looked at me as if I had posed a strange question. "Years ago," he answered. "I have not had sex since my wife passed away. And to be honest, I assumed men my age were supposed to stop doing that. That belief is the myth I want to challenge. Once you reach 60, 65, or 70, people often assume you should simply shut down all sexual activity. But here is what I told David and what I want to share with you. When ejaculation stops, the prostate does not cease functioning. It continues to generate fluid. If this fluid remains unreleased, it accumulates, forming a kind of stagnant reservoir inside the body. This accumulation causes prostate congestion, inflammation, discomfort, and over time, serious health issues. The prostate is not meant to hold fluid indefinitely. And when it does, it swells, becomes inflamed, and irritated. This is when symptoms appear, such as sudden urges to urinate, a weak urine flow, dribbling, and even pain during urination or ejaculation. Many men attribute these signs to aging, but the truth is the system is clogged and under pressure. It gets more concerning from here. Long-lasting inflammation in the prostate has been associated with a higher chance of prostate cancer. I am not suggesting that abstaining leads to cancer, but frequent ejaculation helps to lower the inflammatory conditions that make the prostate more susceptible to illness. There is solid evidence to back this up. A major study conducted by Harvard tracked nearly 30,000 men for years. It discovered that men who ejaculated at least 21 times per month had a much reduced risk of developing prostate cancer compared to those who did not. This is not a myth, but a fact supported by research. Let me bring this back to Michael Carter. After we talked and he fully grasped what was happening inside his body, he decided to change. He started stimulating himself again. not driven by desire or loneliness, but from a place of care. Gradually, his symptoms began to ease. The pressure lessened and his sleep quality improved. Something reignited in his eyes. A spark that connected him back to a part of himself he believed had been long forgotten. Ignoring this issue does not merely lead to a few restless nights. It results in persistent discomfort, along with potential reliance on medication you might otherwise avoid, possibly even future surgery. On top of that, it could raise your chances of developing cancer, all because of the misconception that a man your age should simply let this aspect of his health go unaddressed. You would never neglect your heart or overlook your blood pressure, so why turn a blind eye to your prostate? Now, imagine if I told you that the shame men experience about their bodies, the years of silence and unease around self-touch, actually worsen the physical symptoms. This is precisely what the next revelation uncovers. Once you grasp the link between emotional suppression and bodily decline, your perception of your own health could change forever. The third secret is that the shame involving self-touch harms your mental well-being. There is a certain quiet desperation I observe in many older men who visit my office. It appears not only in their words, but more so in what they omit. Their eyes dart away when I inquire about sexual habits. Their shoulders slump when the topic of masturbation arises, and they tend to dismiss it or shift the conversation by saying, "Doctor, that is something I don't do anymore. That belonged to my younger days." Yet, I sense the underlying truth is not that they stopped because they wanted to. Many people were taught at some point that continuing to explore themselves was wrong. Let me be honest with you. This kind of silent, unspoken shame is one of the most harmful forces affecting your health today. For a long time, many of you grew up in an era when touching yourself was labeled as dirty, sinful, or weak. You may have been punished, mocked, or made to feel ashamed. Those early messages did not disappear completely. Instead, they buried themselves deep within your nervous system and bones, quietly influencing your connection to your own body even now. The outcome is often a subtle withdrawal. You start to emotionally detach from physical contact, even when you actually desire it. You come to view desire as something wrong or inappropriate. You stop reaching out to yourself not because of a lack of want, but because you were conditioned to believe you should not. Over the years, this disconnection transforms from merely emotional distancing into something biological. What most men are unaware of is that regular healthy sexual touch, including masturbation, plays an important role in mental well-being. It helps regulate cortisol levels, enhances dopamine production, promotes oxytocin, the hormone responsible for trust and bonding, and benefits sleep, mood, and brain function. However, shame interferes with all these positive effects. Shame causes muscle tension, elevates stress hormones, and creates recurring guilt patterns in your mind that may go unnoticed. Shame acts as a stressor, and prolonged stress can have serious consequences on your overall health. It is connected with anxiety, depression, heart problems, immune system issues, and even memory decline. I once treated a patient aged 72, recently divorced and deeply depressed. He was not taking any medication and had no serious health problems. Yet he felt completely drained, numb, and isolated. He told me he had not been sexually active, neither with others nor by himself, for over 10 years. "I thought that part of my life was over," he said. Beneath his statement lay a silent sorrow, not for losing sex, but for losing a part of himself. We worked together gradually, without any drugs or radical measures, just simple exercises to help him reconnect with his body, free from guilt or pressure. After a few weeks, a change appeared. He began to stand taller, his sleep improved, he started laughing again, and his blood pressure lowered. He was not cured, but he had regained connection. This is the toll that shame demands. It steals your energy inch by inch, making you believe you are too old to feel alive. But that is not true. You are never too old to treat yourself with kindness, respect, and intention. You are never too old to feel complete. And if shame alone can cause this much harm, imagine what happens when hormonal decline adds fuel to the fire. Because here is a reality that most men do not expect. Testosterone does not only decrease as you age, it declines more rapidly when you stop acknowledging your sexual self entirely. Once that hormonal balance tilts, it influences much more than sexual function alone. Driving changes your mindset, your movement, and your way of life. And that is exactly what we are going to reveal next. If you are still following along and find this useful, type the number 1 in the comments to let me know you're here and engaged. Now let us dive into the 4th insight, which might surprise you. Secret 4. Testosterone is triggered by sexual activity, even when you are alone. I want to share with you something that most men only discover when it is already too late. Something I wish every man over 60 could hear clearly without any shame or doubt. Testosterone, the very hormone that fuels your energy, strength, motivation, confidence, and sexual desire, does not simply diminish gradually because of age. That is the false idea many have. But here is the truth I have uncovered after decades working with men just like you. Testosterone also declines when you stop living like a man who wants to feel alive. When sexual energy is ignored, suppressed, or buried beneath years of shame and inactivity, your body begins to dial down its own masculinity, signaling that you no longer require this. It then starts reallocating its resources, redirecting hormones, reducing blood flow, conserving energy. Your muscle tone diminishes, your waistline grows, your sleep quality worsens, and that spark, that edge that used to make you feel like yourself, begins to fade, not because you are old, but because your body has stopped receiving the reminder that you are still here, still alive, still capable. I recall a man named Michael Carter who used to be a firefighter before retiring at the age of 73. He was once full of vitality and presence. When he first came to me, he appeared exhausted and slouched. He told me he had not felt like himself for many years. "I am just slowing down," he said. However, when I reviewed his lab results, I saw that his testosterone was only slightly above what is considered clinically deficient. When I inquired about his sexual life, he shook his head and said, "I do not see the point anymore." That very mindset is the true danger. It is not the age on the calendar. The real issue begins the moment you stop recognizing your sexuality as a vital and living part of your identity. I assisted Michael in gradually reconnecting, not with another person, but with himself. We focused on simple rituals with no guilt, just mindful presence. Over the next several months, not only did his hormone levels rise, but his posture improved, his voice gained strength, and he resumed lifting weights. His eyes began to sparkle whenever he spoke. This shows that the body reacts to what we focus on. When you neglect your sexual self, your testosterone diminishes. Yet, by reawakening it, even through deliberate solo touch, you send a message to your brain. I still need this. I still desire to feel. The brain then responds by reactivating systems that have been dormant for many years. This is not merely theoretical. Research has demonstrated temporary increases in testosterone after sexual stimulation, even when alone. We know that erotic thoughts, physical involvement, and anticipation can influence hormone balance, mood, and drive. Your body is deeply connected to what you pay attention to. The body is designed to respond to pleasure, connection, and presence. And when you give it nothing, it gradually begins to offer nothing in return. The price is higher than many men recognize. Low testosterone has been linked not only to tiredness and sexual problems, but also to heart disease, diabetes, mental decline, depression, and even a shorter life expectancy. It is not merely a number. It serves as a crucial indicator of how involved you are with life itself. The toughest part is that most men do not realize how far they have distanced themselves from their true selves until it seems nearly impossible to return. However, there is a path back, and it does not start with medication or surgery, but with re-establishing your own connection to your body on your own terms, in your own environment without guilt. This journey involves reminding your biology that you are still active in the game. If that surprises you, just wait until you hear what Michael Carter is about to reveal next, because there is something even more essential than testosterone, which many men unknowingly harm every time they engage with their bodies incorrectly. Secret number 5 is that erectile function operates on a use it or lose it principle. Many men come to believe a quiet falsehood after 60, which sounds like this: if I am not having sex, I do not need to worry about erections anymore. Michael Carter has heard this many times, men dismissing concerns about their function because they assume they have aged out of needing it. Let me share something that most doctors do not clearly communicate. Erectile function is not solely about sex. It is deeply connected to blood flow and nerve health. Cardiovascular health and long-lasting vitality are deeply connected. I once cared for a patient named Harold, who was 69 years old. A strong, intelligent man with a solid medical background. Yet he had gone 5 or 6 years without experiencing an erection. It was not because he was unable to, but because he believed there was no point. His wife had passed away, he was not seeing anyone, and he assumed that phase of life was finished. What he did not realize was that his body was not just idly waiting for him to decide to re-engage with it, it was gradually shutting down. What many men fail to understand is that the penis functions much like any other muscle and vascular tissue in the body. When it is neglected, the tissues lose their flexibility. Blood vessels become rigid, oxygen supply diminishes, and tiny tears and fibrosis begin to develop. The soft tissue starts to harden, and eventually the organ no longer responds as it once did, not because of aging, but due to lack of use. The consequences are significant and unforgiving. When regular erections cease, the smooth muscle inside begins to waste away, and the network of fine blood vessels essential for engorgement becomes less effective. Nitric oxide, a crucial substance responsible for triggering erections, decreases notably. An important aspect unmentioned by most is that this decline happens regardless of whether you are actively aiming to engage sexually or not. This is a biological process. If the body does not encounter frequent arousal and engorgement, it interprets the system as unnecessary. Over time, this leads to harm not only physically, but mentally as well. As the body's ability diminishes, so does the mind's confidence and desire, creating a challenging cycle that affects overall well-being. When confidence starts to fade and your sense of self begins to diminish, you may start to feel unlike yourself. This feeling does not stem from age itself, but from the way your body no longer responds to the identity you once held. For many men, this can trigger withdrawal, sadness, and even early signs of mental slowing. I have observed this process unfolding not suddenly, but gradually, quietly, and entirely. The good news is that it is preventable. So, what steps can you take? You can remind your body that it still counts, that every system remains essential. This can be achieved without needing a partner, external pressure, or shame through consistent erections. Whether through masturbation or even non-sexual arousal, keeping blood circulating, tissues oxygen-rich, and neural roots active is crucial. This is not simply about seeking pleasure for fun's sake, but about protecting a fundamental part of your physical well-being and identity. Maintaining erectile function means much more than sex. It sends a message to your body that you remain involved, connected, and truly alive. I understand how easy it is to retreat into silence, especially when society implies that after a certain age, you should become quieter. Yet silence comes with a price, and your body remembers every bit of it. You might ask why erections are so vital, and what other factors could naturally hinder your ability to achieve and sustain them. This leads us to a problem that is even more harmful than inactivity, a widespread modern addiction that many older men fail to recognize until it has already rewired their brain. This will be the focus of the next part. Today, we will discuss how pornography, even the seemingly innocent type, can quietly diminish your sensitivity, your excitement, and your pleasure. This is something not often talked about, especially among older men. Pornography changes your brain in subtle ways, but the good news is that you can regain control over these effects. I want to address a topic that often remains hidden in the shadows, particularly for men in their later years. The very word pornography might make some of you shift uncomfortably or want to look away. But if you are still listening, please keep an open mind and heart. What I am about to share may transform the way you understand your mind, your body, and your sense of masculinity. I have met men in their 60s and 70s who have confessed that they still watch pornography. Not because they are addicted, but because it is one of the few ways they experience feelings. Many of these men live alone. Some are divorced. Others have lost their partners. They are not seeking excitement, but rather yearning for connection, or at least a reminder of it. However, what most do not realize is that the pornography available today is vastly different from what they encountered in their 20s. What was once simple static pictures or gentle visual cues has turned into a torrent of rapid, highly stimulating, and instantly gratifying material. The human brain, especially as it ages, is not designed to handle such overwhelming input without impact. Every time pornography is viewed, particularly the more intense or fast-paced types, the brain releases dopamine, a chemical linked to pleasure and reward. Motivation, reward, and pleasure are all linked, but with repeated exposure over time, your brain's reaction to natural triggers starts to weaken. It becomes increasingly difficult to experience excitement from simple, genuine touch. You begin to crave stronger sensations, more novelty, just to feel anything at all. This is not only about preference, it involves changes in neurochemistry and your brain's wiring being reshaped by repetition. When your brain is conditioned to expect exaggerated artificial stimulation, your body responds accordingly. Erections might become less reliable, and achieving orgasm turns into a challenge. Some men even develop complete porn-induced erectile dysfunction, meaning they can perform only when watching porn but not with a real partner or in solo moments without it. The negative impact extends well beyond intimate moments. I have witnessed men fall into cycles of shame, anxiety, and frustration. They start to think they are broken, isolating themselves, feeling defeated. Tragically, many never connect the dots and fail to see that the very thing they relied on for comfort was slowly draining their vitality. But here is what I want every man listening to know. This is not permanent. You are not broken, you can retrain your brain. Even after 60 years, your brain still possesses the ability to heal, reset, and rediscover what genuine grounded arousal feels like. This process of healing begins when you distance yourself from artificial highs and let your body reconnect with reality, presence, sensation, imagination, and yes, even vulnerability. Silence. Some men decide to take a month-long break from all kinds of visual stimuli, while others prefer to ease into it gradually. The key point is to start rebuilding your nervous system's connection to pleasure on your own terms. The aim is not to abandon pleasure, but to reclaim it, to make it truly yours once more, and to experience something genuine. Now, if pornography has dulled your sensitivity, the next insight might affect you even more deeply, because while digital media can seize control of your brain, isolation can seize control of your spirit. The final truth I want to share might be the most crucial of all. It is not about technique or chemistry, but concerns what happens to a man's body when he stops being touched entirely. Secret 7 involves the most perilous mistake: isolation. Among the many dangers that older men face, there is one that surpasses falling testosterone levels, is more harmful than pornography, and more damaging than any physical complaint. This is isolation, not just the kind where you live alone, but a deeper stillness, the kind where you no longer experience touch, neither from others nor from yourself, and where you stop feeling connected to your own body. This is not a choice made lightly, but is often the result of learning somewhere along the way that men at your age are expected to move beyond this part of life. I recall a man named Peter. He was 76 years old, a former engineer, polite and well put together, yet something hollow echoed in his voice when he described his everyday existence. He confided that he had not been physically touched for more than a year. No embrace, no hand on the shoulder, nothing like that. Michael Carter did not express it with sorrow, but with acceptance, as if it was just a chapter that had quietly closed. What Peter failed to understand was that touch is not merely a luxury, but a fundamental biological necessity. The human body, even at the ages of 60, 70, or 80, is programmed for it. When deprived of physical contact for an extended period, the nervous system begins to slow down. Oxytocin levels decline. Stress hormones rise. Blood pressure increases. Sleep quality worsens. And immune functions deteriorate. Most alarmingly, the brain starts shutting down emotional and sensory pathways to protect itself. In essence, when we stop receiving touch, we begin to lose feeling not only physically, but emotionally. We lose a vital sense of vitality and no longer feel compelled to connect with the world around us. The cruel part is that this decline happens gradually and almost unnoticed. One day, you might just skip your usual routine. A week later, you avoid looking in mirrors. A month passes, and the capacity to envision any pleasure disappears. There is an aspect few discuss. Isolation frequently begins in the bedroom. When a man ceases to touch himself, not simply for enjoyment, but for presence and self-connection, His brain starts to perceive it as emotional withdrawal. Over time, this retreat builds on itself. He touches himself less, feels less, and becomes convinced there is nothing left to experience. That is the true loss, not merely diminished erections or a decline in desire. It is the gradual erosion of one's identity, purpose, and emotional acuity. It is a silent, invisible fading of the self. The feeling of disconnection and isolation has been closely associated with depression, heart disease, and even premature death, not caused by age, but by a sense of abandonment not from others, but from oneself. I want to emphasize that this is not about blaming anyone. Life brings loss. Distance occurs. However, surrendering does not have to be part of the story, because the act of touching yourself, whether erotic or not, transcends vanity or routine. It is about reclaiming your body as still belonging to you, about signaling your brain, heart, and nervous system that you are present, important, and willing to feel. I have witnessed men revive their spirits simply by granting themselves the permission to reconnect, to end the silence, to return to touch, and to awaken the parts that fell silent prematurely. When this happens, their posture improves. Their voice regains strength, and their inner light begins to shine once more. If you are still with me now, and if any part of this resonates with you, then what follows might be the most crucial part of this message. Now that you have heard 7 truths that nobody ever shared, I will guide you on how to start anew step by step through a straightforward yet powerful practice I offer my own patients. This daily ritual helps retrain your body, rebuild sensitivity, and reclaim what time and silence have tried to erase. In closing, if you have reached this point, I want to speak to you not only as a doctor, but also as a man who has spent many years sitting face to face with other men, listening to their anxieties, their regrets, and sometimes their silent dreams. What we have discussed today reaches far beyond just masturbation. It touches on a much more profound subject: how you connect with your body, how you carry your personal history, and whether you are ready to accept that your life, your sexual experiences, your emotional well-being, and your physical health have not ended simply because society said so. We began by acknowledging the reality that careless masturbation can gradually condition your body towards dysfunction, that going through the motions without focus or connection is far from innocent. It reshapes your brain and diminishes your sensitivity. We examined the consequences of completely avoiding ejaculation, which can cause congestion and inflammation in the prostate and, in some situations, possibly raise the chance of developing cancer. The human body is meant to keep moving, and when this motion halts, multiple systems begin to malfunction. We also delved into the invisible toxin of shame, discovering how countless men carry burdens of guilt that are not truly theirs. Guilt passed down through societal norms, religious teachings, or family beliefs. Guilt that should have no role in a man's healthy relationship with his own body. Additionally, we discussed how low testosterone levels are not merely a natural part of aging, but a condition that worsens when one stops engaging with their sexual self. Even something as simple as touching oneself with care can help reverse this decline. Finally, we highlighted how an erection is not just a sexual response, but an important indicator of cardiovascular health, a true sign of overall physical well-being. The principle of use it or lose it applies beyond the bedroom. Ignoring it affects your self-esteem, drive, even your memory. When we discuss pornography, it's not to condemn, but to clarify how it changes the brain's chemistry. This is less about judgment and more about biology, showing how something that initially brought excitement can gradually dull your perception of reality. The most harmful consequence is isolation when you stop touching, stop being touched, and cease any form of connection. The body then retreats not only from pleasure, but also from purpose, emotion, and life itself. What I want you to remember is straightforward. You are not broken, you are not beyond repair, and you are not alone. Every system inside you still desires connection. Your brain continues to crave feeling, your heart yearns to open, and your skin longs to experience what being alive truly means. This path back to yourself does not require anyone else. It begins with your decision to stop shrinking, cease apologizing for wanting comfort in your own skin, and reject the false belief that aging makes you invisible. You are not invisible. You are present, and what you choose to do from here matters deeply. When Michael Carter advises his patients ready to begin anew, he does not suggest medication or guilt, but presence. He offers a simple daily ritual he calls the Golden Protocol. 10 minutes a day devoted to quiet, intentional, and respectful time to reconnect with yourself. There is no hidden agenda, no stress, only a gentle way to rediscover your being. Touching, breathing, and being mindful can transform into a morning habit for some or a nightly practice for others. Yet almost always, it marks a moment of change. When a person connects with their own body tenderly, not from routine or urgency, but from genuine curiosity, something in them transforms. The body recalls sensations. The mind becomes calmer. The energy reignites, and perhaps you can experience this too. This is not merely about taking back your sexuality. It is about reclaiming your entire self. And that journey begins right here, right now, within you.